All right, welcome to PREM1R Cooking. Today we're going to be making lunch. It's going to consist of some sweet potatoes, courtesy of Mr. Yams in Aldi. Not sponsored, hopefully it will be. At any rate, we got some quality sweet tubers right here, coupled with some scrubbing from Mr. Scrub Daddy. Reach out. And basically, God always said, God made dirt, dirt don't hurt. Well, he never said it, but other people did. And at any rate, dirt's not awful for you, but we'd like to eliminate some of the earthy taste. So we give the good old yams a little bit of a beat down with good old Smiley here. Once we're done with that, give it a little bit of a rinse again, and we're ready to behead them.
Alright, so regardless of anything else, you want to make sure you're actually preheating the oven to 400 degrees before you do anything else so that you're ready to go.
All right, next step is acquiring a sharp object. Make sure it is not dull and it is sharp and it's very sturdy. That way, especially when you're cutting these boys, you're not going to end up having any cramps in your fingers. Right? First step you got to go is get a good firm plant inside, and then make sure go right on through. No mercy on these guys, right? Next step, pretty much go with some nice bear claw grip. Slightly make some lacerations on in there. Then cut down lengthwise. And you end up getting some quality sized little pieces of yam, right? You want to do that for just about everything. Toss them in a bowl. That will lead us on to the next step, being seasoning. All right, so for your sweet potato yam things, the ideal additions that you want to add are, of course, the extra virgin olive oil. You want to sauce in some salt, some beautiful ground cinnamon, and of course, a lot of pepper. These things combined will create the ultimate dry, wet, oily marinade for the sweet potatoes. All right, so you got your yam sweet potatoes in your bowl. First step is always the oil. You got to make sure that it's able to be coated on everything. So, I don't know, give it some. Give it a little bit more than not enough. You're good there. Next, you want to add your salt or pepper in either order. Just give it a little bit of a sprinkle. I don't like the salt as much, but it's your call. Pepper, you can be a little bit more liberal with. Sauce it on everywhere. And most important, the ground cinnamon. Essential. You want to add an absolute metric ton of the stuff because it just enhances the flavor beyond literally anything else, right? So once you have that, I prefer the patented one-hand technique. If you have smaller hands, you may need to go with two. But in essence, what you do is you just start gripping them and pulling them up, right? Some will exit the bowl. That's not an issue. They are trying to run for their lives, but they're already dead since you chopped them in half, so that's all right. All right, so if you were a professional, you would have already preheated your oven, but we told you to do that earlier, so you should be all set, right? So now, having acquired a baking sheet, apply the already olive oiled and cinnamon and all marinated up potatoes pretty evenly around the top, using your already messed up hand from coating them, evenly spread to ensure maximum cookage. And once set, apply to preheated oven. All right, so now we're going to be using some beautiful deceased pig, which you're going to be cooking up. So to ideally make the marinade, what you want to do is not touch the raw meat with your hands before you do everything. So we'll be right back. All right, so having not touched the raw meat with your hands, what you're going to do is grab yourself some olive oil or whatever oil you like. Olive oil is the healthiest. Give it a decent sprinkle. A little bit between like, wow, and that's not enough. Next, a vibrant amount of cayenne pepper. Making sure to grip it very tightly because your hands are covered in olive oil now. Giving it a lot. That's the ideal amount, obviously. little bit of salt, not a ton. It's not the healthiest there if you want, I don't care. A lot of pepper. And we'll give her some crushed red pepper flakes just for aesthetics. Let's be honest. It looks kind of cool and makes you look like a man, kind of, or a woman, or a transgender person, whichever you prefer. I'm not really sure anymore. At any rate, you want to lather this fine piece of meat up, flipping it over, making sure you're getting all little orifices and parts of it. We have a bone in on this one, so we really want to make sure we're getting all up in there, right? Make sure we're evenly spreading let's be frank, the rather obscene amount of cayenne pepper we added earlier in order to get that flavor going all through. And this is technically kind of a marinade, if you want to call it that and seem really fancy. But in reality, it's really just kind of adding some sauce and stuff, right? So we're gonna let this fine looking hunk of meat right here sit for about 5 minutes, just to soak up all the juices and the other stuff that we kind of put in there. Then we're gonna throw her on a piping hot skillet. All right, so now having rubbed your meat, you now have the ability to add it to the cooking apparatus. We are using a cast iron skillet, making sure not to contaminate a raw meat hand with anything else, as you can get salmonella. You want to carefully add in the pork, making sure it makes a cool sizzling sound, or else you're not doing it right. All right, so with your ridiculously large tongs, a prerequisite obviously, you want to grab one side, pull up quickly, making sure that the juices that fall out from the other side are placed underneath, ensuring maximum tastiness. Keep in mind also, this is a bone-in piece of pork, so it's going to take a little bit longer to cook around this edge, so don't judge that as your main point of whether it's done or not. Also, this stuff on the side is kind of fat, so just ignore that. We don't like it. All right, now, grasping with maximum protection because this thing's really hot, you're going to sauce this in the upper rack of the oven just for about maybe 4 to 5 minutes because, and you're going to turn that off so you don't burn the house down, just because you want to ensure that the searing doesn't leave the center raw, because salmonella is not fun, so I'm told. All right, so for the salad, first step is going to be grabbing a hearty handful of kale. Nice big knife, just chopping it up into some more bite-sized pieces because, you know, kale is not inherently bite-sized, nor is it really inherently tasty. So we got to do as much as we can to this to make sure it's really edible. That's the goal in the end here, especially with this kale. So, having chopped it, oh my goodness. All right, so before we were so rudely interrupted by the timer, we were chopping up some kale and some peppers in order to allow for some superb salad to be made to complement these greens. Right? That's the ultimate goal here, having a well-balanced meal. So we're going to be doing only the red peppers today because they look the coolest. So we're just going to basically cut off the tops there, get out most of the seeds. There'll still be some left. They're not going to hurt you. Just half them there. And then at this point, coagulate them up together and just start going to town on them. Getting those pieces as manageable as possible. Like we said, the ultimate goal here is to get some tastiness in with some other colors. Once you have the two, you may mesh them together, get everybody to know each other, and then Give it a few more good chops. Snort. Alright, so with your final products, the key obvious last step is the presentation. You'll be placing your quality meat right there, followed by some lovely green and red, and finalized with the piece de resistance, the orange sweet potato, adding not only healthy calories, but also thoroughly deliciousness. Final step here, we'll throw on just a sprig of olive oil on top of the whole ensemble, including mostly the salad. And look at that. A beautiful 5-star meal, courtesy Scrub Daddy. And there we have it, folks. A premier quality production from PREM1R Cooking. I present to you lunch. Thanks for tuning in. Not even half bad.